so you guys probably, we're going to go ahead and get back to the assignments posted on the figurative language, so we don't waste any more time. That way, maybe you guys can catch up a little bit. So, try to share my screen here. Not being able to share my screen here. Anybody help? Daniel, John, can I help with sharing my screen? I can't, it's not enabled.
Oh, she's not listed as, here, let me change you to the, oh wait, you, yes, never mind.
All right, that's all good. Okay, so we need to open up the figurative language. All right, so, okay, so on this particular one, we finished through these, sympathy last week. Cage bird, I kind of left you through with finishing that up and then looking at the Emily Dickinson poem. So I want you to open those up, and then we're going to look at a few notes for today. So just, if you'll open up the Caged Bird. All right. Everybody with me? Okay. Anybody not with me? Please, you guys, make sure you're talking, make sure you asking questions, interacting, okay? It's pretty boring with me doing all the talking, so be ready to just chime in, take off that mute so you can just talk when you need to. All right. Okay, so you guys looking at the Caged Bird, you guys should have read that through. The Caged Bird is a little bit different from sympathy in the fact that it's a little bit more positive based on the case. It's not actually, it's about what a bird sees when it's free. Sympathy, he's got a lot of different negative connotations about the red cruel bars and how these scars and a lot of negative, brutal type of words that you see when you read this poem. But in Caged Bird, a little bit different from Angelo's point of view. She actually starts by talking about what a bird sees when it's free. He leaps, he's on the back of the wind and floats downstream till the current ends and dips his wing in the orange sun rays and dares to claim the sky. So it's all those things that a bird might see and feel when it's free, just to, you know, he has a whole world ahead of him, okay, without any limitations, without any restrictions. And of course, we all know that we all have our limitations based on, you know, just because, you know, she's probably talking a lot about slavery, but you can put this into your own life and talk about, you know, discrimination. You know, we have a lot of movements going on, the Me movement, the Black movement. I mean, we have so many things going on that we feel limited. COVID, I mean, you feel extremely limited and you feel like in a cage because of this. So it's, I mean, there's a lot of things that you guys are experiencing right now in your day and age that you're going to feel like you're in a cage. And what it feels like to be free is kind of what she's trying to convey to you. All right. So the second stanza now is more or less going back into a cage now, the negative aspects of being caged up. But she says, but in contrast, but a bird that stalks down the narrow cage can seldom see through his bars of rage. His wings are clipped and his feet are tied, so he opens his throat to sing. So he's trying to sing for, you know, what we know is freedom, right? Like, oh, I just want to be free. I want to see what what this bird is seeing up here in this first stanza. Now it drops down the second stanza, it's in a cage, like, oh my gosh. And we're all enraged when we're, you know, when you guys are grounded or you can't go out, or you can't see your friends, whatever it might be, you feel like sometimes you're in a cage. And that's what, you know, maybe not as drastic as what this bird is here, but it's actually conveying that aspect of, you know, discrimination or restrictions, okay, that we have when we're caged up. And then she goes back to the third stanza. The caged bird sings with a fearful trill and of things unknown, but a long for still. And his tune is heard on the distant hill, for the caged bird sings of freedom. So we're going back to what a bird feels and sees when it's free. The free bird thinks of another breeze, and the trade winds soft through the sighing trees, and the fat worms waiting on a dawn bright lawn, and he names the sky his own. So we got this free bird just floating through the breeze, no limitations, doing what he wants, sitting on any tree that he wants, eating all the worms and food that he wants, okay? The sky is his limit. And then we're contrasting again. It says, but a caged bird stands on the grave of dreams. His shadow shouts on a nightmare scream. His wings are clipped and his feet are tied. So he opens his throat to sing. What can he do, right? He's opened his throat to sing for freedom. Oh, how I want this. And then she ends it where the caged bird sings with a fearful thrill of things unknown but long for still. And his tune is heard on the distant hill, for the caged bird sings of freedom. So just longs and yearns for freedom. And most of the poem is how it is if you feel and are existing in that freedom, okay? And it's contrasting how it is if you're caged up, like, it's terrible. But she always goes back to the positive. So I can see more Angela, she's more of an optimist, I think. You know, she's always looking for the good of things. So that's kind of what an optimist is. But Dunbar in Sympathy, probably a little bit more of how it is to be caged up. You see how it's so cruel. He's always, there's nothing that he can do to get out of this cage. So he probably feels a little bit stronger maybe, or more of a, feels the brutality of slavery, maybe more so. Okay, so going on with that, the reason I discussed that, because if you do have to compare and contrast those, so. Okay, so in Caged Bird, you have 4 questions. Some of you did great on these, so please, please, those of you who did these, you know, I probably commented that you know, maybe if you were off a little bit, to make sure you're listening today. But some of you did great and had no problems with this, so make sure you guys are chiming in and helping us answer these questions, okay? So number 1, to contrast the life of the free bird in stanza 1 to Angela's life poem with the life of the caged bird in Dunbar's. So when you look at the first stanza between Sympathy, okay, and Caged Bird, okay, like I told you, she starts out with the images of being free, you know, seeing what it is to exist in freedom, okay. Where Dunbar, he starts the very first line about a caged bird, how it feels, and he finally understands how it feels to be caged up, okay? It's a little bit different. Then he talks a little bit about how it is to be free, but then he goes back to the cruel bars and how his freedom has been stolen. So in this case, if you contrast the two, okay, Angela's poem is more optimistic that freedom does exist, where Dunbar says, I'm never going to break free. It's always going to be a struggle. I'm always going to be in this cage. So. Okay. Any questions, any concerns, anything you guys want to add to that one? So number 2, how does the free bird and the caged bird symbolize conditions faced on different groups of people? So throughout history, different groups of people have been caged up, right? Or discriminated against, or felt like they were never going to be free to do what they want. And you can look at different groups like the, women, like blacks, like Jews, through the Holocaust. I mean, there's all kinds of people that have been discriminated against and felt like they were caged because of who they are, or how much money they had, or how much power their family has. So it's, okay. Any questions on that? Alyssa, did you get that?
Yeah, I was just writing it down.
Cool. Rain, you good with that? Okay. Brianna? Leanne? Anya, Sophia? I can't see your face.
She doesn't feel good today. She doesn't want to be on camera.
Malachi, you good? Okay. Jenna? Addison, we good? That's a lot of you on. Oh, and then Kira. Is it Kira? Yeah. There she is. Okay. Let's go on to number 3, right? Explain what the sky symbolizes in the last line of the poem and why the sky is an appropriate symbol. Okay, so if you look at, it's not the last line of the poem, but it's the last line. Stanza 1, 2, 3, 4. As the free bird thinks of another breeze, and the trade wind soft through the sighing trees, and the fat worms waiting on a dawn bright lawn, and he names the sky his own. Which ties to the last stanza, the very last line, on a distant hill for the caged bird sings of freedom. So if you guys put that all together, the sky is, what does that actually symbolize? Addison, got an idea? Malachi, you have any idea what the sky symbolizes? Have you ever heard that phrase, the sky is your, how do you end that? So the sky is your limit. It's like you got whatever dreams that you have, they exist on what goals and plans that you make for yourself, right? The sky is a limit. You're free to do what you want, when you want, as long as you're doing the right things by moral standards, right? But the sky is a limit, meaning like it's your freedom. You're free to eat things that you want to do with your life. It's you have to draw that path of your own. So that sky is symbolizing that freedom, being in the breeze, eating the things that you want to eat. Okay, so talking about that freedom that the bird so longs for or yearns for. Okay. Now, number 4, the caged bird is an extended metaphor for what? So the whole entire poem is actually metaphorically speaking of what? Who is the caged bird? Jenna, what do you think?
maybe like I would say like people that have like went through like hard times, if that makes like any sense. Like
Yeah.
kind of like the stuff that's going on now with
Yeah.
like life, like Black Lives Matter, but like not just like that, like Jews and other people like that have went through like really hard times other than like what we've went through. Like we might have been through a lot of stuff as well, but we haven't been through as like anything as harsh as what they've been through. If that makes any sense?
Does, makes perfect sense. Okay. So, you know, what she's speaking of is, yeah, people have hard lives and they've come through struggles and they seem like they're just totally blocked in everything that they do, right? Because of maybe being discriminated against, maybe being living in poverty, maybe being the wrong color, maybe being the wrong, having not as much money as another, not as much education, whatever it might be. I mean, there's, you know, we feel like sometimes we feel like, you know, there's too many limitations to get what we want. Okay. So we want to reach that freedom, but there's so many limitations that's blocking us. So, and if some of you put slavery, which is a great answer, I'm sure she was probably referring to much in this day and age that she wrote this, you know, slavery and how they were mistreated and how, you know, they just, you know, how in their right mind do they not have equal rights? And, you know, what makes them any different? And, you know, like many other, it's just Jews, you know, same thing, you know, how in the world is there any reason that they be mistreated like they are? And, I mean, there's been many different wars and battles of mistreatment, the Civil War, you know, how women were created equal, blacks. It's just crazy how many conflicts we've had over superiority, I guess you could say, discrimination issues. So, okay, going on. The last poem here on this post was We Never Know How High We Are. That title is actually symbolic of a person's life, so to speak. You know, we never know how high we are. Is, you know, it's very straightforward in the fact that, you know, sometimes we go through all kinds of classes and learning and practices, and we maybe we know football in and out, let's say. We know, you know, and we've practiced it, we know we're knowledgeable, we've watched so many games, and you just feel like, I got this. And then when it comes to the fact that you want to try out for, let's say, the quarterback, and you're like, I can't do that because that guy, he's got it down. He knows what he's doing. He's all about it. Like, he's been doing this for years and he's done club teams. There's no way that I can compete. Well, that's just a confidence issue, right? And that's a way many human beings are. I mean, that's what we do. Sometimes we just don't believe in ourselves enough to get what we want, to meet our dreams. So, and that's kind of what she's reciting here in this poem. It says, we never know how high we are till we are asked to rise. And then if we are true to plan, our statures touch the skies. The heroism we recite would be a normal thing, did not ourselves the Cubits warp for fear to be a king. So going on about this, talking about our, you know, the first two lines, we never know how high we are till we're asked to rise. So like if you were, hey, you know, I know that we're getting ready to study, let's say, whatever subject matter, World War II. And man, you've read these books. I'm talking to, let's say, Malachi. You know, I know you've studied this. I know you read about the the Holocaust all the time. You got this. Hey, can you get up and talk to the class about, you know, anything that you feel involved with and that you just really love to learn in that subject matter? And Malachi's like, no, you can't pay me enough. No way, not happening. No, you can't give me enough food, right? Which I don't know. You might be the first ones. Okay, I got this. But that's kind of what she's talking about. Even though you know it, even though you know you're good at it, it doesn't mean that you're going to stand up and be that king, because sometimes you fear that king because of a confidence issue, right? Sometimes it's that confidence or that belief in yourself that just gets in the way. So anyway, that's where she's kind of coming from there. Okay, so any questions on the poem? Alyssa, does your cat have any questions? Okay. All right, so let's go on to these questions. Some of you, like I said, some of you tried to do these on your own, which is great and awesome. I was proud to see that some of you had good answers, those of you who did. So great job. And those of you who didn't, that's okay. Just make sure you chime in. Got any questions or concerns on these, please let me know, okay? So what, if anything, has made you feel like a caged bird? This is kind of your own thing. I know all of you have probably been grounded, or living in COVID feels like, I mean, right there feels like kind of a caged bird for some of us, right? Can't get out and see our friends and just go out to the movies like we want to, or out to the skate park, whatever it might be. So not having a graduation like normal. Sometimes we've had a lot of experiences recently. I'm sure you have, that you feel like a caged bird. That's your own answer. Number 2, what discovery does the speaker make in each poem? So sympathy, caged bird, and in Dickinson's poem, we never know how high we are. What theme kind of runs through each one of these? Anybody have an idea? I want to shout out. No? Leah, got an idea? See, there we go. There's that confidence issue that Dickinson is speaking of. We know it, but we're not going to shout it out. We're not going to, no, I'm not real confident in my answer. So like, see, you guys just lived it out right there. Okay, so the
Jenna,
whole,
do you have it?
well,
Would it be like, because they're all kind of talking about like race and stuff, so would it be like racial inequality?
a little bit, yes, definitely. Okay. And Dickinson doesn't actually, you know, she doesn't really talk about like the racial inequality part of it, but it's because we feel like we're not like others, or we don't have the, you know, we don't have the, maybe the money or the skills that somebody else does. We're never going to get that break free, right? We're never going to break free to those dreams that we're really, really wanting to do because of that fear and that confidence that we have. Same thing when you look back at Dunbar's sympathy. You know, you want to be sympathetic towards that bird that was caged up and so long to be out. Same with the caged bird, okay? That knew what the feeling of freedom is, but never could actually get to that part of his life. So, right, all of them is dealing with, you know, being caged up or being discriminated against in some way or another, okay? So, and we just can't reach that freedom that we so long to have. What's the caged bird want to do on number 3? What's the caged bird want to do? What's the Get out.
Freedom.
What?
In their freedom.
In their freedom. Break out of those bars. Yep. Nice job. Of what does the free bird in Angelo's poem think? So a free bird thinks of another breeze and the trade wind soft through the sighing trees and the fat worms waiting on a dawn bright lawn, and he names the sky his own. What does the free bird think?
Frank, what do you think the bird thinks?
Of another breeze, right? So, you know, you guys like, oh, I just want another, like some of these people are thinking, I just want another rain. Just another rain. It's just so dry and hot. Just another rain. Well, this bird, what's he thinking of? Thinking of another breeze, right? Thinking of another wind that he can just soar through. And then he's thinking about these fat worms that he could eat. He could just, you know, he's got all this freedom just to fly through this wind and eat the fattest worms that he can. So, any questions on that? All right, according to Dickinson's poem, what happens when we are asked to rise to an occasion? Okay, what happens when we're asked to rise to an occasion? We're like, did not ourselves the Cubits warp? Okay, Cubits is actually talking about like a measurement from your finger to your elbow, and it's like it's all bent up, like it's misconstrued. This measurement's like I thought I had it, but I'm not so sure now, because I just fear like I'm just not good enough. I'm not good enough. I fear this person that's, you know, she's got more experience, she's got more knowledge, whatever it might be, and we just we get all bent up in ourselves and our emotional state, and we don't believe in ourselves anymore for some reason or another. Okay, so that's why we got to plan out things. We got to keep on moving towards our dreams. Don't forget your goals in life. You just got to keep on going. Number 6, what might the cage symbolize or represent in Dunbar's poem? Okay, what's a cage symbolize in Dunbar's sympathy poem? How about Addison? No? Anybody want to chime in what the cage symbolizes? If you're locked in a cage, I mean, from this area, and being that he had 2 parents that are in slavery, you know that he's probably more or less talking about this cage as being slavery. There's no freedom for him. It could also be, from what your perspective, if you read this poem, more of a discrimination issue, because, you know, many people have been discriminated against because of all kinds of different things. A lot being today's age is gender or color, right? So it could represent that as well. So slavery or discrimination, you know, that cage there. Number 7, compare and contrast the bird images from Dunbar and Angelo. this is what we discuss from Dunbar's sympathy. The bird images, a lot through here is the brutality, how it's bruised, how the blood, I mean, there's just blood everywhere because he beats his wing against the cruel bars. He's got scars from being beaten so much. Okay, there's lots of different negative connotations, lots of different brutal aspects of being caged up. Whereas the caged bird, she's more of an, I think, more of an optimist, where she sees the positive things of being free. If only the bird could be free and you know, just float around in the sky and claim that sky. If only, you know, and so it's more of a positive view of the freedom of a bird, you know, if it could be free, rather on Dunbar's, it's talking about the brutality of being caged up as a bird. So. And guys, just, you know, paraphrase what, you know, that, and if you didn't understand, please let me know. I'm just trying to discuss it, and I know it's boring just listening to me. That's why I wish more of you would talk.
When they speak up, they sure have good opinions. I like hearing their thoughts.
I do too. We love hearing your thoughts. That's what we're here for. Okay. Number 8, does Dickinson feel that people are capable of acting better than they do, or that they do not give themselves credit for the good things they do accomplish? Well, you know, you could say that they, you know, a lot of, when she says, you know, we never know how high we are until we are asked to rise. And then, you know, we, even though we plan, even though we know that we can reach reach the highest point scale or the highest scores on tests, even though, it doesn't mean that we feel that confidence in ourselves. We don't give enough a credit to ourselves or believe in ourselves to actually follow through sometimes with our dreams. You know, at school, if you know, always wanted to be, you know, part of the Stuco and, you know, be a leader, sometimes we don't believe in ourselves to know that we can be that lead part to, even though we have the skills, sometimes we just don't believe in ourselves, okay? Which is a tragedy. So sometimes we just don't give enough credit to ourselves to actually accomplish our goals. So how could a human being be equivalent of a caged bird or a free bird? Explain how a human being could be equivalent. You know, some of your parents might have really wanted to be a doctor or a veterinarian or, you know, a lawyer, you know, some of those dream jobs, famous baseball player, whatever it might be, and they never got to that point. Could have been because they were limited or restricted because of family values, money, color, education. You know, a lot of those things come into play, and you know, a lot of people don't accomplish what they dream of doing just because of those restrictions that are placed upon us. Nothing much we can do sometimes, but we have to keep on playing the game and enduring and moving and climbing that mountain so we can accomplish. But in a lot of cases we give up, which is another tragedy. Number 10 is, what question? Anybody? Leanne, you good? Rain, are you good? All right. So it says this on 10 is thickets are more likely to see people as caged birds or free birds. Brianna, what do you think? Caged birds or free birds?
Sometimes both.
Both? She does have a little bit of point on both, right? Like if we could plan out, she says, if we could just, you know, be true to our goals and our plans, we could touch the skies, right? But then that confidence or that, you know, that those struggles come into play for us. And then then we get all bent out of shape and we have too many fears about actually accomplishing those dreams. So, and that's where the being caged up, you know, you feel like you're in a cage because of your limitations and restrictions come into play. So that's where, you know, being caged up comes into play. She does speak a little bit of both, but she ended up kind of saying, I got too many confidence issues, limitations, restrictions on me that just can't do it. And that's just talk. Gotta believe in ourselves. What lines in Dickinson's poems indicate the main idea? Rain, how about you? What do you think? What lines indicate the main idea of this poem?
We never know how high we are.
You are correct. And then just feed into that next line where it says, till we are asked to rise. We never know how high we are. We never know how high we can go because like, get up and speak over that. Like, oh no, I don't want to do that. I'm not good enough. So those first two lines are actually speaking of your main idea of this entire poem. The other lines are just discussing that, those two lines. Job. Okay, going on, I just want you to, all the other ones are dealing with the notes that you've taken on alliteration, simile, personification, hyperbole, okay? So, and you have to look back at the poems to figure out what's what. If you don't remember, please look at your notes, okay? To give those examples in each of those poems, okay? Questions on that? All right, you guys, while you're open, I want you to make sure that you open up your notes. And well, actually, let me go over the homework before I go over the notes. I want you guys, we're gonna go over these notes in a second. You don't need to open up the next thing, but I do want to make sure you have the notes open. It says vocabulary to know. Do you guys have that on your notes? Can you guys open that up? No, Brianna says. Okay, I'm going to give you these answers. If you don't have this down, colossal is your first word that I need you to write down, colossal. All right, make sure you get these down in your notes. And colossal, something that's colossal is just like, oh my, that is colossal of a statue. Huge, massive, okay? So colossal is just something that's massive and huge. So make sure you get these down for better understanding of the poem you're gonna read. Prejudice, huge word that is part of the next poem that you're gonna do, okay? We have prejudices all over society. Some people, and it actually leads to disadvantages. So one of the words I want you to have for prejudice is disadvantage. I could spell. Another word that I want you to have is like a a prejudgment. You judge people based on, it's more like, you know, like a bias based on, you know, whatever, based on their color, based on their height, based on whether they wear glasses. That's more of a bias, but so, but they all lead to disadvantages in some way or another. Solomon comes from the Bible, but it's known as being in nowadays, if you see the word Solomon used, it's known to be like wise talk or a wise person. Obdurate is something is somebody that's being extremely obdurate or stubborn. Okay. Conflicting. If you pelt somebody with a snowball, you know, pelted might be you threw. You just bolted somebody with something. Belabored is another one. It's going to have something to do with if I belabored with my brother, I probably argued. I was in conflict. And if I had a feeling of ecstasy, it's like an overwhelming feeling. Okay. Just overwhelms you with maybe excitement, possibly. And incubus. An incubus is something that like a devil or someone that just causes anxiety. So if you don't like to play football, but your dad really wants you to play football because he loves the sport, that might be your incubus. It might be the cause of your anxiety. So make sure you have these terms down in your notes. Give me a thumbs up if you got this down. Good. Brianna. Okay. Job. All right. All right, just gonna go on to your homework. I want you to make sure that you finish up those posts on those poems, those 4 poems that okay, make sure you get all those returned or turned in, okay, for a final grade. And then I want you to make sure you open up the, the post that says an obstacle. And I would like you to, there is a poem there, but I'm not going to go over that poem today. But I would like you to listen to the TED Talk, Michael Kimmel's TED Talk. It's going to talk about gender equality and his take on it. He's a sociologist and psychologist at a major university. Got a lot of humor. He's a pretty good talker. I know some of the TED Talks get pretty boring. I try to pick one he's pretty good. And his talk is going to relate to the poem Obstacle, which we'll get to next week. So I want you to watch that video for me. If you watch it and want to go ahead and answer some of the questions on this assignment in the red of what you can know. Some of are comparing and contrasting. You can't do anything with that if you don't read the poem. So but these 4 here, B, C, and D, you could probably answer after you watch the video. So make sure you get those done. And number 14, you probably could too. So we'll go into more of the poem, the obstacle next week, but please watch the video, finish up the 4 poems posted from last week. Any questions on your homework? Good? Not too bad, right? You can watch a video. All right, you guys. Any other questions? Any shout outs? Anything you guys need to go over? Sorry for going so long again. All right. Well, I guess I am finished and I will leave you to your day. And I guess lunch is next, right?